IB Nation Sports Talk up and rolling on a Thursday. I'm Sean Stiers. Who's going to be with me on the show tonight? I wish I was a domer. Wants to know if it's going to be Vince. Who's going to be here? It's been kind of a potpourri of co-hosts here recently. I had Trevor and Jesse yesterday, and there he is. It's Vince D'Addario.
Woo! Close. Crowd goes wild.
Yes. Oh, man, it's Thursday already.
I can't believe it.
I know.
The week started off very slowly.
Mhm.
You and I talked about it. It was Monday part 2 on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden it's Thursday and all we've got left is Friday. I feel like Wednesday and Thursday went by extremely quickly. And here we are. Now, I mean, come on, let's be honest. Going to work on Friday is just like a speed bump on the way to Friday night football.
Yeah.
Which is then
right.
gets us to Saturday football. So yeah, basically the weekend. What's up, Trevor?
You got a fan in Trevor. All
Hey,
right.
Trevor has a fan in me because
Got a
I
fan
love
in me.
Yeah, Trevor is the man. I appreciate Trevor so much for swapping me out because I had to do a little soccer supervision over the last few days.
That's right. How'd that go? A little sectional soccer?
Yeah, sectional shots. Wow. Sectional soccer and cold sectional soccer. It gets a little chilly when the sun goes down now all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I had to layer up a little bit last night.
I know. I went out for my morning stroll this morning, and it's like, wow, I can't, because like a couple days ago, I was still able to wear just kind of a pullover and shorts, but today it was like, I got to find the sweatpants today because it was chilly out there this morning.
I had the pullover and a jacket on last night. I even busted out the stocking cap for the first time. I was like, you know what? I'm not sure it's quite cold enough for the stocking cap, but it feels good, and I'm just going to go with it. It felt good. So it got down. I think when I left the soccer stadium, it was like 48, 49 degrees, something like that. So it got to be, and then last night I think it got down to 39. So
it's supposed to get up to 82 tomorrow, and I think it's going to be 70s this weekend for the game. So
yeah, it's gonna be beautiful.
Nice little Indian summer weekend. It sounds like
today was beautiful outside. My
house is freezing.
Trip. It was beautiful.
My house is freezing today. I was walking around with a sweatshirt on earlier, and I was debating because I was like doing my work. And my feet were freezing. I was freezing. So first I put the socks on, and then I'm like, man, I need a sweatshirt too. And so then finally it kind of warmed up a little bit. And, so I opened up like the back screen door to kind of let some warm air in. It's a little bit better now, but we got this brick house, and they just, that's kind of how it is. It seems like it's either one extreme or another.
I don't know what your recollection of New Prairie is as a visitor, but
my only recollection of New Prairie is that tiny football press.
Well, that's definitely.
You remember, speaking of cold,
high up on the list.
You were out there when it was. I don't know.
Yeah.
You were our sideline reporter.
That
freezing your stones
anytime
off.
I think of New Prairie, it's terrible weather and tiny press box. It's the only thing I think of, and honestly, crappy playing field. Because it's the grass and it's kind of nasty. That's what I think about when I think of New Prairie. And tomorrow, in theory, if everything holds, it's going to be a beautiful night. It's going to be beautiful. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself being at New Prairie with beautiful weather. It never happens, ever. So, and we're talking football, track. It's always nasty because it's like in April and you never know what you're going to get in April. It's always the worst going out there. So
we'll enjoy it.
I will enjoy the nice weather.
We've got a lot to get to.
We do.
Show.
And we're just talking about the weather.
I know. We're sitting here like old men yakking about the weather. That's what we're doing. But Marcus Freeman did his afternoon media call on Zoom today. By the way, hit the like button, please, as you're coming in.
Also, by the way, I don't know, since I wasn't on the show yesterday, I'm really hoping Jesse didn't drop the ball. Did he bring up the fact that it was your birthday yesterday?
He did. That was the first thing he did when he, not the first thing he did, but
good.
He kind of finished the mailbag with us. And then after Trevor left, we started rapid fire, and he says, it's a birthday rapid fire.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure that was not left to the wayside.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well,
because
happy
I
belated.
had not received a birthday text from him at all.
He
said
waiting.
he was saving it for the rapid fire.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Well, happy belated, even though I said something to you yesterday, but
thank you.
Happy belated birthday.
You even gave me a couple years, like on the young side. So
I don't know. I've got it wrong in my phone. That's what it is. Like I had it, and it said that it had that number on there, and I was like, oh, here we go.
Well, he thought I was 2 years older than I am. You thought I was 2 years younger than I am.
So, split the difference.
I know.
He thought you were, well, hold on a second. Your own son thought you were 2 years older than you are?
He got totally confused because my wife and I, what are we? We're about 4 years apart, because I went into the Army for 4 years and then got out and we met in college. So, hey, I met a young woman, I'm like, come on now. So she's 4 years younger than me. For some reason, he thought that she was 2 years older and that I was also 2 years older. So he was off on both of us. Yeah.
Wow. Come on, Jesse. You at least know how old your parents are.
I know. Like total whiff. Total whiff.
Well,
I don't know. You think you raise them right.
I know.
And
believe me.
He's got the fancy math and engineering degrees and all that stuff, and he can't even get something
seriously
like
numbers.
Birthday, right?
Numbers are his thing.
Literally.
Wow. Okay.
I know.
Come on, man.
I know.
All right. Anyway, back to Notre Dame.
Let's do it. Marcus Freeman. A lot of stuff that he talked about today, including a few players. Jaylen Sneed. We'll get to the Jaylen Sneed in a minute. We're going to start with the I always want to say name, image, and likeness. That's obviously not what it is. The National Letter of Intent, the NLI, not NIL. But we talked a little bit about this in the mailbag and in rapid fire yesterday. The NCAA announced that they're going to eliminate the National Letter of Intent program. And so Marcus Freeman was asked about it, and here's what he said about it.
We had an idea of this happening. So we've thought about this in the past, and there's still some things to get worked out, but it's every school in the country will play by the same rules. So as it affects Notre Dame, it's going to affect every other school. So they'll sign some type of agreement with the institution, which is a lot of times what you're doing with transfers now. And so it won't affect our recruiting class or how we recruit. It's just a different logistics in terms of, the recruits signing a different agreement instead of an NLI. We'll obviously sign an agreement with the university.
And, again, we talked about this yesterday. Vince has got a quizzical, puzzled look on his face. Are you puzzled by this or what?
Well, puzzled to a degree because they're still going to sign something, but my guess is it's not going to be as binding. Is that really?
Well, no, it's still going to be binding.
Okay.
It's just that it's because of the revenue sharing that's going to be coming in. It's going to be like some sort of revenue sharing agreement and not just, it's just going to be called something else. It'll include, I think, different financial details since revenue sharing is going to be part of the deal. So you still have to sign on the dotted line during the signing period, whatever the signing periods are and all that different stuff. It's just going to be called something else, and there'll be different terms involved because of the revenue sharing largely.
Gotcha. So they're still signing something. It's still binding.
Exactly.
It's just different language. Is that what I'm hearing? Is that the difference?
Yes.
There's still a signing day. There's still
there's still going to be exactly. There's still going to be signing day, and again, you still have to give an actual written commitment to your program and all that stuff. So it's not going to be just like I was saying yesterday. It's not just going to be like free agents floating around out there and stuff like that. There's still going to be binding agreements that have to be signed. There's just going to be different specifics to it and all that kind of stuff. Steven says transfers sign an agreement. I mean, they've got to sign something.
Yeah, because you're getting a contract essentially. I mean, you're saying I'm giving
because you're getting a scholarship
and you're getting something in return. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Decaf says sounds like a complete dumpster fire. I don't think so. I don't think
this
it's
part
going to be
in a vacuum. It's not. I mean, it's all part of what you could potentially call a dumpster fire, I suppose.
I mean, but I think it's just it's for them to figure out, just like a letter of intent for the last 60 years has been for them to figure out. Like we don't know everything that's on a letter of intent unless you've actually
I've never
signed the
seen
letter
one.
of intent. Yeah, that's
I was
exactly
hoping
right.
to see one in February, but I have yet to see one. So
Jeff says, then why change the wording? Because it now includes revenue sharing.
Right.
That's like going to be literally, along with name, image, and likeness, it's kind of hand in hand, the biggest change in college athletics. I mean, that's what this whole lawsuit and the billions of dollars and all this different stuff, that's what all this was about. Student athletes are now going to be getting revenue shares. They're literally going to be getting money along with their scholarship. They're going to be getting other money for going to the schools. So that's why they have to change the wording, because it's not just going to be, sign on the dotted line, I'm committed to this school, you're giving me the scholarship, and whatever other details are in there. It's also this player is getting, whatever dollar amount that the school deems that they can give them, in exchange for that as well. No clue what the percentage of, how revenue
nobody
share,
knows that.
Again, like that's for the schools to figure out.
I can tell you right now
and it's going to be different. With every school and every player and every program, probably
all of those things. Like it's going to be different, and nobody knows the answer to that right now because it's not a reality yet. I mean, we know that it's probably coming, but we don't know what that reality is. So, yeah,
right. So that's that. Again, not a lot of details there, but it's just kind of like it's going to be changing. It's changing for everybody, and Notre Dame will just roll with the punches. But again, everyone who's getting a scholarship during the sign, there's still going to be a signing day. There's still going to be a signing period. It's just that whatever is on that sheet, that contract, whatever you want to call it, it's just going to look a little bit different. So it won't be called a national letter of intent anymore. That's the long and the short of it. And that's the most, again, like if you're asking for details,
that's all we got.
No clue.
And I would venture to say that most.
I wish I was a lawyer, Jeff. Then we'd all be a lot.
Yeah, seriously.
Better shape. Okay, so a little bit more specific. You may remember after the Louisville game, Jaylen Sneed left the field without singing the alma mater with the rest of the team. And so there were some people who automatically assumed he was leaving the team. Marcus Freeman was asked about that today, the Jaylen Sneed situation, and here is the response.
No, I wasn't aware of that, but maybe he had to use the bathroom, or I don't know. I wasn't aware of that, but he's had a great 2 weeks of practice. He's a lot of opportunities to learn from the previous game. Jaylen Sneed wants to be the best football player he can be and help this team be successful. So he's had a great bye week, a great week of practice this week, and expect for him to do good things in the game on Saturday.
So Vince, hilarious. I don't know, like this just like all that, like all those things about 2 great weeks of practice and all that stuff may very well be true. But like, wouldn't it be odd if Marcus, like all this stuff that's been floating around, like people have been talking about Jaylen Sneed leaving the field early. It just seems odd that Marcus Freeman had no idea until 5+ hours ago that Jaylen Sneed left the field without singing the alma mater, unless, he really literally did just need to run off the field and go to the bathroom. And that's all it was.
I will say that the first time I heard about it was live on the show. So I haven't heard
in the post game, right?
Yeah. I haven't heard about it from anybody else, any other fan site or what. Not that I'm reading a whole bunch of other people's stuff or listening to other people's stuff, but nobody's even brought it up to me outside of being on the show. You know what I mean?
I was going to say, a lot of fans have brought it up in our shows over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's going to continue.
Thing. You and I have talked about it on the show, and then I think we talked about it in the post-game show as well. But personally, I mean, it never got, well, I guess this was the first, Monday would have been the first opportunity for him to explain it if it was a thing, I guess. I think if it wasn't anything, then he may not have known about it. I mean, there's a lot going on during, at the end of a game and things like that. He may not have known about it, but I don't know. I guess maybe I'm naive, but I feel like there's a definite chance that Marcus Freeman might not have known about it.
Again,
especially if it didn't mean anything.
We have a message board, and I know, like message boards, we're definitely a very online show, right? Like we're paying attention to our message boards. We're literally doing a show online, and we have people, giving us their live feedback during the show, so it probably is a little bit different than the real world out there walking around. But there have been multiple threads on, again, like this is what happens when you've got a bye week as well, because like you don't just talk about you don't just talk about it for 4.5 days. You talk about it now for basically 9-10 days on the shows, and you know what I'm saying, because you've got an extra week in between. So this is still kind of lingering almost 2 weeks later. So yeah, I mean, maybe it was, somebody said nothing burger. Maybe it is just a huge nothing burger that was literally blown out of proportion, which is what it seemed to be to me.
Yes,
when I heard about it to begin with. But the only thing, because part of the question was he left the field.
Right.
He had only played 12 snaps, which is the fewest snaps he's played in a game this year. And the previous low season low snap count was the week before when he played 23. So 2 weeks in a row, his snap count got smaller, So again, like maybe you leap to a conclusion or whatever, but Marcus Freeman said he hadn't heard about it.
Yeah, let's see what his snap count is this week, and then we can decide whether it's a something or it's a nothing.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to raise his snap count because he walked off the field and they feel bad for him. You know what I mean? Could have just been the way that, the game plan was, you know what I mean? And that just meant less snaps for him or whatever.
And I mean, that's the thing when you've got a rotation the way you've got it of all these linebackers, that like these guys are out there based on what their skill sets say they can do.
Right.
So if Jaylen Sneed's skill set wasn't as appropriate for Louisville, that dictates that the other guys, which they did, they saw the field more. Jack Kaiser was out for a little bit. You saw more Drake Bowen, and that's the thing as well. Like when you look at Kingston Viliamu Asa, when you look at Jaden Osbury, and when you look at Drake Bowen, in the times that they're out there on the field, the play tends to be above Jaylen Sneed right now as well.
Yeah.
Like the overall consistency of play.
Agreed. I look, we all knew that there was talent in the younger classes, and this was the first time that this is the first year that Jaylen Sneed has looked comfortable at linebacker. And I think if we're just talking about between the whistles and we're talking about just football in general, look, Drake Bowen and KVA played really, really well overall. And they're going to eat up somebody's snaps. And if I had to take a guess, Jaylen Sneed would probably be kind of the first candidate because there's only so many snaps to go around, right? So, yeah, I'm not overly surprised by anything at this point when it comes to Jaylen Sneed and snap counts and walking off the field and everything else.
Right. So another player who came up today, and this is kind of fun because it's almost like we're just like, hey, we're revealing secrets here, because the Zoom call, as I've said before, like unless maybe you've seen some tweets from some other guys in the beat who are in the call or whatever, it's like it's not broadcast on YouTube and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of people don't know exactly who was talked about or what was talked about, because you don't get to watch it. Tyler Buchner came up during the Zoom call today. How does Tyler Buchner help the team? Has he been a scout team quarterback at all for the Irish this season?
I think he's done a great job at signaling for us. That's so important. Like everybody's role is so important to get done for us to have success. And He helps with signals. He's still playing wideout. But a lot of time, when you're the signaler or you're one of the guys that are signaling during scout teams, you have to signal. And so he's been a vital piece of this program and has done a great job in his defined roles in terms of helping us have success.
Okay, so he started off. I'll just play the beginning of that again here.
I think he's done a great job at signaling for us.
Done a great job at signaling for us. I don't know. Like, Vince, go ahead. Like, I think the look on your face kind of says it all. I think you agree. Like, let me just start with this. Let me start.
Okay.
One question. Should Tyler Buchner, considering the quarterback background that he has, should he be the scout team quarterback more so that all the scholarship quarterbacks are more involved in the actual running of the Notre Dame offense? What do you think about that aspect of it?
No, I don't think he
Okay.
should be the scout team quarterback. And here's the reason why. You're not going to get snaps for all 4 quarterbacks on the varsity side. That's never going to happen.
Correct.
It's never going to happen.
Especially during the season.
Yeah, it's never going to happen. So if you pull those guys, if you pull Minchie and Carr away from the scout team, right? If you pull them away from the scout team, then they're getting 0 reps, period. I don't honestly care if they're running Notre Dame's plays, if they're running the opposition's plays. They're running something. They're getting reps. And that's the most important thing. So I have no problem with Buchner not being the scout team quarterback or whatever. And I would also guarantee that Teddy Rizak is getting some scout team reps as well. So they are not going to, put Carr and Minchie. They're not going to put them in harm's way. Although obviously Carr had an elbow issue that he's rehabbing or whatever he's doing for whatever the 4th string quarterback is dealing with. But I just think that I would, as a coach and as a player for that matter, you want to get reps no matter what they are. You want the ball in your hand. You want to be throwing the ball. You want to be behind center or under center, depending on what you're doing, right? You want to be doing something. You don't get anything out of standing on the sideline. You get something, but you get more out of actually just being on the field, getting better, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's why I would not put Buchner at scout team quarterback. It's not worth it.
Right, because again, because it's a bye week and we've had more time in between games. There was some stuff the other day where people were talking, because like there was a question as to, was there any change during the bye week in terms of who the number 2 quarterback is? And the answer was no. And so people were like, well, what difference does it make? He's the number 2 quarterback. And I know Brian responded to that. Well, the number 2 quarterback gets, other than the number 1 quarterback, the number 2 guy gets more reps than anybody else because the rep for 3 and 4 are very minimal. It's like you might get 5 plays a game or something like that with the action or per practice with the actual offense. And then, like you said, that's why scout team, at least you're still doing something. You're participating in football. You've got a hand in it. You're doing something in terms of your development. So yeah, I agree. Again, Tyler Buchner was not brought back to be a quarterback. He was brought here as a walk-on receiver. And the first thing that Marcus Freeman said, he's doing a great job doing the signals, and he's doing the signals during practice as well. So,
so specifically to his comment,
Generally with Marcus Freeman, you're going to get his honest response like out of the gate, and then he kind of like flowers it up after that. That's exactly what you got here. He's doing a great job for us with what we're asking him to do, which is be the signal guy. And then it's like, oh, everybody has their role. Like that's the flowery, coachy part. But like, hey, how is Tyler Buchner helping the team? He's doing a great job at signaling in. That's what he does.
That's how he's helping the team.
Yes,
that's exactly it.
Like, that's it, man.
And
That's
so,
what he does.
To DK's point, my next question is, do we even need to keep talking about a scout team wide receiver at this point?
Sure don't. I can't remember in all the years that I've been covering Notre Dame, which is 20 plus now, anybody ever asking about the guy who signals in the plays. Like that is not something that we talk about. And just because it's Tyler Buchner and his history with Notre Dame football, that's why it's obviously being talked about.
Yeah.
He's getting the plays in and he's doing a good job. That's his role. And in his letter coming back, he said, I want to do whatever I can to help the team. And he is. So, okay, here we go.
Right. And no, it was not Mike Singer, just for those throwing.
Yeah.
It
doesn't
always
live around here, so
it always amazes me. Well, you don't have to live around
it was
here
a
to be on
Zoom
the Zoom
on
so,
Thursdays, wasn't it?
yeah. But it's like everyone just jumps to assumptions in terms of, like when we start talking about
funny.
difference. Who's asking this question? And
It's so
everything.
funny the names that come up too, because the names I'd come up with sometimes, but just throwing that out there.
Right. Right. And no one related to, who Mike works for either. Just like none of those people. So
now you got me wondering. All right. Okay. All right.
DK got this in on the Jaylen Sneed. It was pretty good. Pretty good. I thought it was called an Irish goodbye, where you basically, you just walk away and don't say anything. So what Jaylen Sneed just literally pulled an Irish goodbye, I guess, out there.
The Italian goodbye is that it never ends. Let me tell you that right now.
Go home already.
Just you slowly work your way toward the door, having individual conversations with everybody that you see. Yeah. Been part of many of those.
DK says it was Sean. No, it was not me.
Sean's not asking about Tyler Buchner.
Not asking.
I can promise you that. That is not happening.
Nope. Nope. Oh my God. Is this a real question?
Yes, it's 100% a real question because they think everybody's going to transfer out.
And this is why someone asked the question today.
Yeah.
Because people think this is going to happen. The question is, fair chance Buchner takes snap in the spring, though. And yeah, I mean, I've said before, the only way that Tyler Buchner sees any time as any kind of quarterback going forward at, here at Notre Dame is if you do have a couple guys who transfer out. And,
right.
You need numbers. You need numbers. Yeah. And that's the only way that it happens. So is there a fair chance as of right now? I will say no. Assuming that, one, you don't know what they're going to do in terms of an incoming freshman. Would he be an early enrollee? And, all those different things. They still have Rezac. They obviously still have, as of right now, have Angeli Minchie and Carr. I think the only way, like I said, that ever happens for Tyler Buchner at Notre Dame is if you have a couple of transfers and you need a body because you don't have any other replacement for that.
Yeah, agreed.
So the screen game, this is something that we've talked a bit about, the screen pass game in Notre Dame's offense. How do you get it going? Marcus Freeman was asked. So hang on a second.
Practice. We got to continue to practice it, work on those timing, work on our perimeter blocking, see different looks. That's a part of, running a screen is you don't know what look you're going to see defensively. And there's certain looks that you like and certain looks that you don't, but we have to continue to practice it. We've attacked it in practice, and we'll improve our screen game moving forward.
So how vital is it, Vince, that they get this aspect going, do you think, the screen game?
It's important. I wouldn't say vital. It's important. I mean, obviously, they called one heck of a screen in the Louisville game that proved to be extremely important. And I think they can do that more often than they have. So I think it's important. It's funny. It's like the screen game is a buzzword for me, for fans. I feel like that and play action. Like those are the two buzzwords when it comes to if the offense isn't working right, how come there's not more screens and how come there's not more play action? Those are the two things. Those are the cure-all to every offense, right? It's important. It's not vital. That's my take on the screen game.
I think they need to, like you heard Marcus Freeman talk about it. Sometimes it's what kind of calls the defense has,
Sure.
And like negates your screen call. It's like it just feels like, just like the biggest screen pass of the season so far, the 32-yard touchdown to Jeremiah Love against Louisville. That was the perfect timing, the perfect call. They had against the defense that they wanted to see. it go up against, and Jeremiah Love ultimately took it to the house. It feels like, like there's a little bit of luck maybe that goes along with that, and there's also, it's kind of like the opposite of, as a defensive coordinator, like you can blitz, but if you blitz wrong and you're in the A gap and then they hit something in the B gap, you're totally stewed. And I think that there's some of that with the screen game as well, like just kind of hitting on the right timing of when you call them,
of course,
for them to be able to hit, but I think it can definitely be used more as a weapon, especially considering, like what has been going on with the Irish offensive line. You don't have to be quite as perfect if you can time out and hit a screen pass when you need to hit it, because again, it's like you let the rushers go and you just float one over their head, and there's Jeremiah Love or Jadarian Price ready to house one, when he gets
100%. Yeah, no, screen game can be very important. I almost used the V word. Can be very important to a game if it's called correctly and in the right moment and all of that. We've also all seen screen plays that don't work, where the quarterback just has to spike it into the ground and pray for another down. You know what I mean? And so there's nuance to a screen game. It doesn't work every time you can't just keep going to the screen game. It has to, the timing of it has to be accurate.
Exactly. And that's what, again, like you said, is it vital? No, but it sure would help, I think, provide a little bit more overall consistency. So, like you talk about those easy layups in the passing game, but again, they've got to know when to hit them. They've got to kind of hit them at some more opportune times.
Right.
I think
screen game is very nuanced.
Yep. You brought up play action, Vince.
We're going to call things that we believe we're going to have success doing. If we believe play action passes will be productive for our offense versus the defense we're going to see, we will call it. But obviously the plays we've called, we felt are the ones that are going to help us have success in the game, and we'll continue to do that.
So I guess I didn't set that up particularly well, but he was asked why not more play action, and then you heard his response there. So, I mean, without saying it, it doesn't sound like that's maybe Riley Leonard's comfort level, that whole thing, play action passes.
Yeah, and play action is a little bit different now too than when everybody's in shotgun all the time. Like, it's not like back in the day when
come under center and
you're under center, you turn your back to the defense like you're handing off, and I mean, it's this whole scenario and this whole acting thing. It's different now, right? I mean, play action could be something as simple as the ride. It's an RPO essentially, right? It's a ride. You're reading. You pull it and you throw it. That kind of a deal. Technically, that's play action. You're play actioning a run. It's not as effective in the shotgun, in my opinion, as it is when you're under center. Notre Dame doesn't run on offense where you're under center, so I don't even think play action is as effective nowadays as it was 10, 15 years ago when most people were under center.
Yeah. I mean, your zone read, your RPOs, I mean, those are
all play action.
Effective. Yeah. I mean, it's a form of play action. Yeah, exactly. Jay is saying he feels like Denbrock's going to have some wrinkles this week. I mean, that's what I am. I thought that there might be some more wrinkles last week. As it turned out, it was, maybe just a little bit a continuation of some quarterback power. But, again, first half did hit some passes and things like that. We didn't see near the 21 or 22 personnel or those kind of things that we were hoping to see. We'll be curious to see with an extra week of preparation, though, what kind of stuff Mike Denbrock dials up and kind of on what we were talking about the other day, sort of that continued comfort level for Riley Leonard and all that kind of stuff and what they're calling and does he continue to look more comfortable out there? I don't know. Okay, one final thought before we get to some we in, we out on the defensive side of the ball, run defense. And the question was, do you have to give anything up with pass efficiency defense in order to improve your run defense?
We have a mindset we want to be elite in the passing game. Like passing yards can truly be detrimental as you talk about big plays and explosive, but there's still ways to be better at our run defense. And schematics part of it, yes, it's fitting guys up, being perfect in our fits. It's doing different looks to different runs. And so there's no one solution to it. We got to tackle. We got to knock guys back on contact. So all those different factors that I gave you are things that we're working on in practice to try to ensure that we do improve in the run game. There's so much confidence I have in our defensive staff, Coach Golden, and the players on our defense. It's our pride. Like, we want to be the best. We're greedy people. We don't want to give up run or pass yards. But at the end of the day, we have to have an understanding as a coaching staff of, okay, hey, these are the things we must stop. These are the things that we can't allow to happen. And here's the things that we have to get better at in terms of improving in all phases.
So, Vince, what do you say? There's a lot there. Got a little reality for me at some points.
Yeah, nope, there's no doubt about that. I don't think one has to suffer to get better at the other. I just think you need to execute better at the other. I think that's really what it comes down to for me. I mean, look, how often do we see Notre Dame lining up on an island, against wide receivers because of the faith that they have in their defensive secondary, right? Well, if you're going to go one-on-one across the board, that means you've got more guys in the box. And so if you think your pass efficiency is good when you're one-on-one, what more can you do to take away from your pass efficiency to stop the run game? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
they're as stripped down as they can possibly be in the defensive secondary at times, and the pass efficiency is still good.
There's a lot of man-to-man coverage.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
So I don't like I said, I don't think one has to suffer for the other one to get better.
Yeah, and I mean, here's why I can't get too wrapped up in the stats of all this. Notre Dame right now ranks 49th in run defense. So not elite, but respectable anyway. Yeah. But better than the top, you're in about the top, not quite the top third of the nation in terms of run defense, but they're also number 16 in passing yards allowed, number 6 elite in pass efficiency defense. But okay, let's look at Stanford, because what stands out about Stanford's defense? 88 rushing yards a game. They're 12th in the nation, 88 rushing yards a game. Right. Well, they're 121st in passing yards allowed, and they're 115th in pass efficiency defense. So it's and I think what Marcus Freeman, when you spin it around, there's a much better chance of giving up really back-breaking explosive plays in the pass game,
right,
as opposed to the run game. So you could, and I get what you're saying. Can you still be better? Of course, when you're giving up 123 rushing yards a game, yeah, there's room to be better. But you're you're elite, and you're not giving up by and large, big, huge pass, back-breaking pass plays. So I can live with that.
Yeah,
I think, because when they go up against Navy, for example, Navy's not going to have the same threat of the pass game, so even though Navy and Army run the ball better because of their offenses, you have to be wary. You can't get caught peeking in the backfield all the time. You have to be wary that maybe they'll hit a pass play here or there, but I do expect them to be better against the run just because of the way those teams operate against the run. They'll give up some yards, but I don't think it's going to matter that much. Because again, at the end of the day, Notre Dame is 9th. What matters the most? The points that go up on the scoreboard, right? Notre Dame's 9th in scoring defense right now. So they're taking care of business. It's Stanford, again, go back to them. Their run defense looks great, but they're 91st in the nation in scoring defense. The run defense looks great, but they're giving up more passes, and there's more scoring than an after prom in May, so it's you like that one? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you score as long as you score, and it doesn't matter how you keep them off the scoreboard as long as you stop them, so
agreed.
I think there's room for fine tuning, but it's to me, it's not an overwhelming concern at this point.
And playing Army and Navy is going to skew the stats for your run defense anyway. So even if Notre Dame was ranked highly in run defense, it's all going to get skewed when you play Navy and Army. Like, that's just going to happen. Not only are they going to run the ball the majority of the time and get good rushing numbers, as a whole, like for the game, right? But they're a really good team this year, both of them. So they're going to have success in the run game. So it's going to skew everything when it's all said and done. So at the end of the day, like Decaf says,
I mean,
stats are for losers.
And look, like he's saying, because I rattled off all those different numbers. I think that's why he's saying it. But like, that was essentially without me coming out and saying stats are for losers. I mean, that's pretty much what I was saying. It's like, I'm not getting caught up in giving up a few rushing yards per game when the only true stat that matters, scoring, is elite. They're an elite pass. They're an elite secondary. They're an elite defense in terms of giving up points per game. So that's why I'm not going to get caught up in, the fact, again, like if all you did was look at Stanford and say, man, look at this rush defense. Well, they're giving up a ton of points, and you can also throw all over the place. Like that's how stats can get skewed, because, like if an opposing team knows they can throw all over you, that like they're not even going to worry about running the ball at the time. So that number is automatically going to look better, but they're still putting up points on the board. Yep. So that's why I'm not overly concerned about it. Josh, going back to the Tyler Buchner thing, he said, he made a comment about, like graduating and stuff. He said, graduating from grad school, I wonder if Notre Dame wants to spend a scholarship. I mean, that's going to be like going forward. They're going to have to make a lot of decisions on a lot of people. And the other thing, like to the spring, Buchner's also going to be playing lacrosse. So like how much does that factor into whatever he does in the
Remember,
spring?
Jordan Faison had nothing to do with spring practice basically for Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Because he was an integral part of what they were doing on the lacrosse field, and they won a national championship. So
they were basically load management. They didn't want to wear him out in the, because he was playing lacrosse.
Here's the deal with Buchner and the roster, because the rules are different, obviously, going into next year. It's going to be the 105 roster limit, and they're all going to be scholarship players, right? So, how does Notre Dame do it? That's all the question we're all wondering, what that's going to look like, and how Notre Dame is going to approach the 105-man roster. We don't know the answer to that, but at the end of the day, there's going to be some scout team guys, some guys that you want on the scout team, like a Justin Fischer, who we'll talk about later, and like a Tyler Buchner, who you will keep on the roster and put on scholarship because they help your team, right? They're not going to fill out the other 20 scholarship spots with guys from the recruiting classes. That's just not reality. That's not how this is going to go, because you still need to have a scout team,
right?
And these guys that you are going out and recruiting and stuff, you're going to be honest with them. Now, some schools aren't, which I understand, but you're not going to bring people in and be like, we brought you in to be a scout team player. You know what I mean? Like, they'll go someplace else where they can play. There's still going to be the Justin Fischers, the Tyler Buchners, the Teddy Rizaks of the world, who will now benefit from getting a full scholarship at Notre Dame. Not saying those three will, but I think they probably will. They'll get that benefit, but they'll still be scout team guys who may occasionally help on special teams. Like, those roles will still exist. It's just those guys aren't going to be paying for school anymore.
Yeah. Because everyone's got to have some kind of
You've got to have a scout team. You have to have a scout team. And you're not going to bring in 4- and 5-star guys to be on the scout team.
Well, and I'm sure that, like they're going to continue to identify like the Justin Fischers of the world, like you talked about, who up until this point right now, the preferred walk-on type guys, like guys who they're like, instead of preferred walk-on though, you're going to get at least some kind of scholarship, because again, like they can partial scholarship those guys. They don't have to give them full scholarship. So it's just going to be, different. Again, that's for them to figure out how they're going to sort that out. Everybody's going to have
different, man. That's the thing. Every school is going to do it different. And again, like you said, they don't even have to scholarship all 105. They have the ability to, if they wanted to. It's just the kicker is the cap of 105 on the roster. That's the kicker. And so you're going to see a bunch of guys that are on the roster this year that will not be on the roster next year. That's the crappy part.
Right. DK is asking, could Buchner stay 2 more years and play lacrosse? I'm trying to figure out, like, do you have to fit all this in a 5-year window? Like, even if you're doing 2 sports, I'm not sure.
I don't know how that works. I mean, I know that Buchner is a junior in eligibility this year for football, so he's got 1 more year after this for football. I would assume that is probably the same for lacrosse. So that means he'll have 3 lacrosse seasons, basically. He had last year, he'll have this year, and he'll have next year.
Yeah. My sister was a Division I athlete at Kansas State University. She originally, her freshman year, she was a thrower on the track team.
Okay.
And then she decided that she wanted to play basketball. And so she transferred to a junior college for a year. And then actually went back to the same school, Kansas State, and played 3 more years of basketball after that.
Okay.
So like the math on that is 5 total years. But so because like she played 1 year at the junior college, so she still had 3. I think. See, that's what I don't know. I don't know if you still get like 4 full years of eligibility or how.
Yeah, I don't know how
all of that
works.
works, especially when you've got someone who left and came back and
Right.
Everything else. I'm not exactly sure how all that works. So, sorry. Vince, do you want to do some we in, we out?
Why not, man? I don't get to do Thursday shows that often, so
True.
I enjoy a little we in, we out. Let's go.
All right. So let's pump this up here on the screen. First one, RJ Oben starting. He says he's out. Are you in or out on RJ Oben starting? Vince?
Well, that means I believe Josh Burnham is listed as the backup at both end positions, correct? So I'm in. Wait, Oben starting. I'm out. I would love to see Josh Burnham get the starting reps. But here's the thing. Let's make a mental note here, Sean, and let's look back on the game from a snap count standpoint and find out who had more snaps, Oben or Burnham, in the Stanford game. Because I don't care who's out there the first play. Doesn't matter to me. It's who's out there when it matters.
Who gets the meaningful snaps.
That's all I care about. I don't care if you're a starter, in name. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter to me. I don't care. Are you out there when it matters? I want Josh Burnham out there. I'm
curious how much, since Burnham is listed as the number 2 at both positions, Viper and the field end, like how many snaps is he going to get for a guy who's been out for 3 weeks, 3+ weeks with a high ankle sprain? Like how many snaps is he going to get? Like, I guess some of that will be dictated by how Junior Tui Alamaka plays at Viper, but I mean, he's going to have to play both, I would think. Bryce Young in the mix definitely helps, but I agree with what you're saying. Like they'll mix it up. I'm sure we'll see at least 5 guys when you throw in Bryce Young, if not maybe 6, with a little bit of Logan Thomas sprinkled in there as well. So,
yeah.
But the Burnham factor is real. If he's 100%, then that's huge for them coming back this week and going forward.
No, it's massive. Yeah.
From Misguided Passion, Riley Leonard has more passing touchdowns than rushing touchdowns in total for the next 3 games. In or out on that?
I'm in. I think that the passing game will be a little bit more of an emphasis, and I think he's starting to come into his own a little bit in the passing game. So I'll be in on that.
I'm trying to remember. So he's got 3 passing touchdowns in the last 2 games, and I think it's 4 rushing touchdowns. Does that sound right? In the last 2 games?
I'll take your word for it. I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday.
He's actually got 3 and 3.
Okay, so he's evened up.
He's got 3 of each. So the question is, more passing touchdowns? Yes, I'll be in on that. Over the next 3 games, he'll have more passing touchdowns.
And Andrew says he doesn't care. Running touchdowns count the same.
They do.
I didn't say I cared. That wasn't the question. The question was, which will be more? That's all. I agree with you, Andrew. I could care less as long as the ball gets into the end zone. It I really could care less as to how it happens.
Exactly. What I do, what I don't want to see and what I don't think we'll see, hopefully, is this. Oh, Riley Leonard's got to stand in the pocket and work on
Yeah, I don't want to
let
see
him
that
play
either.
his game. They got to let him
Yeah.
play his game and let the game come to him, and just kind of let it flow from there. But he obviously showed in the first half, especially last week, that he could be better, or 2 weeks ago, last game. Irish in the Bluegrass. Jadarian Price bounces back in a big way after his fumble/benching against Louisville. In or out on that?
He'll bounce back, but I don't know if it'll be in a big way. I still think that they trust Jeremiah Love more, and I don't know. I just don't know that Jadarian Price is going to get the opportunity to bounce back in a big way. Like, what's the definition of a big bounce back? You know what I mean? I don't think he'll fumble again. I think he'll be fine there, but I'll be out that he bounces back in a big way.
Yeah, what your definition of big way is, I think, is the question.
Yeah,
I mean, based on what we've seen from him, I'll go with what you're saying. I think that he holds on to the ball, he doesn't put the ball on the ground, and he hits at least one big run, which is pretty much what he's been averaging, with the exception of Louisville since he was out for most of it. I think he'll hit at least one big run against Stanford. So if that's a big way, okay, I'll take that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, if that's a big way, then yeah, I'll be on board with that. Yeah, that's fine.
From Ballpeen Shillelagh, a frigid sub-32 degrees game day is preferable to a sweltering 90-degree game day. In or out on that?
First of all, when you said game day, of course, I thought about the TV show. I would much rather have it be cold than hot. Yes, because I think you can bundle up. You can get, I don't want it to be negative 10 or something like that, but I can get on board with like 30. Like that's fine. I can dress for 30. You can't really dress for 90 plus. You know what I mean? I can't stand the heat. I would much rather have it be about 30 degrees. I can get on board with that.
Honestly, I think I would take the 90 degrees. Like if I'm playing in it, like coaching or watching or well, even watching, like, would you rather sit in the stands and bundle up and freeze or sit out there in 90 degrees? I think that I would take the 90 because once you start playing, you're sweating, and I would rather be warm than, get that sweat kind of flowing, and then you go stand on the sideline when you come off the field and it's 32 below zero out there and you're cooling down again, and like you just kind of stay just freezing cold all day. So I would take the 90 actually. Wow. I don't think that you feel the heat once you're playing as much as you feel the cold myself. Like visually things look great, like see your breath and all those different things, but I would take the heat actually.
Wow. I think it's harder to breathe in the heat. I don't like it. I hate the sun.
You hate the sun?
When it's 95 sweltering, nope, I'm out.
Go to the freaking moon if you hate the
sun. I'm out. The sun will kill you on the moon. That's a hard out. I'm pass.
Another one from Ballpeen.
Okay.
The most difficult part about maintaining success in modern college football is player focus and culture, as evidenced by whatever Florida State is doing. We in or we out on that?
Oh, I think I'm in on that one. I think in collegiate athletics, no matter what sport you're playing, it's all about focus and culture. I mean, culture can overcome a heck of a lot of things, and a lot of times culture can overcome talent if it's done correctly. So I think culture and focus is absolutely critical for a successful collegiate program. Critical.
Yeah, it's like I've always said, just like what makes a guy truly tick, and like getting in there to like what a guy is going to be like, when he faces adversity, all those things has got to be the toughest thing to read when you're out there recruiting, and
yeah, absolutely.
And you lose a couple of guys in the locker room and things can turn in a big hurry. Like what's going on at Florida State? Like, I have no idea. And that's,
well, and that's,
is it purely talent? I'm like, they've had to, they leaned into the transfer portal
There it
in a
is.
big way. And I
There
think
it
that's
is.
part of what's going on at USC as
Yes,
well, is
100%.
like they've had to lean into the portal so much that like you can't just create a culture when you're bringing in 30 guys a year and
Exactly.
30 new guys, like not even freshmen, but guys who have been in other programs and stuff like that. When you're bringing like that many guys into your program every year, I don't think you can build a true culture. Ultimately, you've got to bring in your own people as freshmen and develop that culture from the ground up, I think.
Yeah, I think you can win some games, obviously with
Right. I'm not saying that transfers are bad and you can't win with transfers.
Right,
I'm just
but
saying you can't win with that many.
Build your program surrounded by transfers. That doesn't work. And at least we haven't seen it work yet. You know what I mean? Like we saw bits and pieces of it, Florida State, I guess, last year. But the reality is that's not how you build a program. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. And I'm sure eventually a program will prove me wrong, but up to this point, it has not worked. And I just don't see it working because it is about culture and it is about, development and all of those things. That's what collegiate sports is all about. It's one of the reasons I love it. So the transfer portal can be helpful if used correctly, but I just don't think you can build your program around it.
Yeah, going back to the weather, Father David says perpetual fall, short hoodie weather.
Yes.
I mean, like if we're talking football, and even I'd like it a little bit warmer for baseball, but it like baseball to me is like even worse than 90 degrees. Like not playing, but like even trying to watch. Like
just
that's
sitting
worse.
in the stand. Like I've gone to games in July or August or whatever, and you're sitting in the stands and there's just no shade and
you're sweating on yourself,
beating down on you. Like that's awful. Like that is an awful, awful feeling.
Yeah, I would absolutely rather, be in a hoodie and some jeans or whatever. Yep.
Hoodie and jeans weather, man. Like that is my absolute favorite. And that happens in fall and it also happens in the spring. And those are by far my two favorite seasons because fall is football and spring is baseball. Like those are my two favorite seasons. And it's not close because I love hoodie and jeans weather, man. Love it.
Another one from Ballpeen. Kenny Minchie sees the field for at least 2 more games this year, and Carr sees the field at least 1 more time this year. In or out on that?
Oh, I'm in on that. I think that could definitely happen. Yeah, for sure. I think it definitely. Neither one of them will see the field more than 4 times total. I mean, we can all agree on that.
This is totally score related.
Correct.
Like this is score related, and they should. 1 more time for Carr, 2 more times for Minchie. Yep, absolutely.
Sure. And look, this is all under the caveat that there are no injuries to Leonard. You know what I mean? To Riley Leonard. That's the key for this whole thing. If Riley Leonard gets hurt and is out for the season, then we revisit that, and I would be out on that because it'll be more.
Couple here from ND Forever 72. We in or we out? Gerby Lambert gets playing time going forward and looks good enough to work himself into the starting lineup.
I'm out because they're not going to do that. I don't see them doing halftime or split split time with the offensive line. They had this bye week and literally nothing changed. So I don't see that happening. I'm out.
I agree. And they gave these guys some looks during the bye week as well. We're going to touch more in detail on that during Countdown to Kickoff on tomorrow's show. Some comments from Mike Denbrock about, how they kind of gave some offensive linemen some looks and things like that. So I'm going to be out, I don't see it.
Yeah.
Just based on where they are right now. I don't see it. It doesn't sound like, and when you listen to Marcus Freeman's comments the other day, it just doesn't sound like Gerby Lambert is there. He's talking about him more as a guy for the future than a guy for right now. We in, we out. Mitchell Evans rebounds in the remaining games and goes from currently 10 catches to 30 for the season, from 82 yards to 320, and from 0 to 5 touchdowns. So He's saying Mitchell Evans will end up with 30 receptions, 320 yards, 5 touchdowns by the end of the year. In or out?
I was contemplating being in on the first 2 stats. The last one, I'm very out. I don't think Mitchell Evans gets to 5 touchdowns. I don't see that happening. But I could see the other stuff happen. I could see 10 to 30. I could see him going up to 30 catches. I could see that. I could see him having over 300 yards of offense, receiving yards. I could see both of those happening, but I don't see 5 touchdowns happening. Not at this point.
Yeah, and this is what I would say, what Andrew says, out because Denbrock doesn't seem that interested in getting tight ends involved. I think that there is,
especially in the red zone.
Yeah.
Like the red zone is number 13.
Yeah.
Or maybe number 4. That's it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. That's what it has been so far. And so, yeah, so I just, there are things that they can be doing with Mitchell Evans and and again, now how much of this is Mitchell Evans still finding his way back from his injury, which is still less than a year old and all that kind of stuff. But they don't seem like there is as much of an emphasis on the tight ends. So I'm going to be out. I'm with you. Like the first 2 numbers, the receptions and the yards, I can see getting close to that, but there's no way he gets 5 touchdown catches this year. He'll be lucky, I think, if he gets 3 at this point.
Do we even think a wide receiver would get 5 touchdown catches total?
Right. I mean, Riley Leonard has 3 touchdown passes right now.
Correct.
So I can't see Mitchell Evans getting 5 in the next 7 games.
Bingo. Very difficult.
Yeah. We in or we out? Jeremiah Love currently averaging over 11 carries a game. That goes up over the remaining games to an average of 18 per game. Vince, this is a massive out.
Oh my God, it's not even close.
There's no way. Because, again, like when Riley Leonard is getting the carries that he gets, and then you've got Jadarian Price and Love essentially splitting carries, we all think that he needs to get more touches, but there's no way it's going to go from 11 to 18 at this point.
You'll be lucky if it gets to 14.
Yeah.
On average. There's just absolutely no way that that's going to happen. No chance. And honestly, you don't want it to happen. You can say what you want about Jeremiah Love, and that's fine, but you do not want him to have that many carries in a game. He'll break down. I'm telling you that is not good. That's not good. You do not want that to be the case. Out.
Big out. Big out. And I know this was talked about. I can't remember. And I know it came up at least once here. It might have been all the way back during training camp. But when they were recruiting Jeremiah Love, his mom's concern was, I don't want you beating him up and giving him 30 carries a game.
That was huge. That was a huge reason he came to Notre Dame, was that promise that they weren't going to wear him out before he got to the NFL.
Right.
That will never happen.
Yeah.
Never happen.
Jeff says he thinks it should be an in. Again, like 18 carries a game is not a huge workload, but from where he is right now to go from 11 to 18 a game, and you've got Riley Leonard, who's averaging about the same amount of carries per game, and Jadarian Price, who's just a little bit fewer carries per game. And again, when you look at the schedule that they've got, they're not just going to start pounding Jeremiah Love all the time. Like, again, no, I get it, Andrew. I'm not saying that he shouldn't be getting 18. I'm saying he's not going to get 18. That's all I'm saying. They're just, what we've seen with how they've split the carries is just how they're going to continue to split the carries. I just don't see them all of a sudden, drastically changing the way they're going about this and changing things up. I mean, we've wanted it just to bump up 3 or 4 more carries per game, even since the first couple of games, and that hasn't happened. So there's just no way they're going to all of a sudden start force feeding him that many, 7 more carries per game. It just won't happen. Again, there's a difference between would we like to see it and will it happen? And I'm saying it won't happen. So
I don't even want to see it. Like, that's not.
So you're completely fine with how they've got it split up.
I like a few more would be okay, but I don't want them up to 18. That's too many. That's too many. You are becoming way too one-dimensional at that point. I don't know. I don't want that to be the case. I don't. That's me.
Yeah.
Audric Estime didn't even average 18 carries a game.
Yeah.
By the way.
See, I wish I was a domer. Says carries versus touches. Wouldn't mind him seeing getting more touches. But again, this goes back to like screen passes and stuff like that, and the lack of what they've been able to do with the running backs and really anyone else, because screen passes aren't just running backs. Receivers, Mitchell Evans, for example, like a tight end screen, different things like that. But yeah, I mean, Jeremiah Love as a receiver has 11 total carries. So he's just not carries, receptions. He's just over 2 receptions per game. So he's getting 13 touches per game right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing the touches get up to about 16-ish.
Yeah.
That would be okay with that. But like I said, if Audric Estime isn't even at 18, Jeremiah Love's not going to be at 18 because you all, like you said, you've got other options. The only option really last year was Audric Estime. You've got Jeremiah Love. You've got Jadarian Price. You've got Riley Leonard. It's not going to happen.
Yep.
There's only so many plays, folks.
I don't disagree with this, Andrew. Like he's saying that he spends too much time on the side. I don't disagree, and we've talked about it before because they're obviously bringing in Aeneas Williams now more in third down situations. We saw that even in the Louisville game when the game was close. Again, he's there. They've got a dedicated third down back, and that's when they're bringing Aeneas Williams in. And the fact that you didn't have Jadarian Price factored into that as well. But, like I've said before, third down is the most important down in a series. And you're taking your best offensive weapon off the field on third downs more times than not. I would definitely like to see him out there on third down more. But, there's a way where you can have Williams out there and Price out there, but they're not doing that either. So, Domer Grizz, if Al Washington's recruiting could match the work he's done to get guys like Junior Tuihalamaka, Logan Thomas, and Bryce Young ready to play meaningful snaps this year, then he would be a top 5 defensive line coach in the country. In or out on that?
I mean, I guess I will be tentatively in on that. I mean, Junior Tuihalamaka has been around for a long time. So, Logan Thomas obviously is a young kid. Bryce Young is a young kid. So, I mean, that's impressive. So, play devil's advocate. Bryce Young comes in as a true freshman. Is that Al Washington getting him ready, or was he ready because of who his dad is? Right? I think there's an argument to be made there.
But that's selectively picking Al Washington apart.
Totally agree. But I also think it's selective to say,
this against him, then you have to at least give him credit when a guy is out there producing.
That's fine. So, but it took 3 years to get Junior Tuihalamaka to be any way type of ready for any kind of game time. Right?
Well, he's a converted linebacker too, and it's only been 2 years for him actually as a Viper. So,
but he would have never played if there weren't injuries ahead of him either. I don't know. He develops talent. That's fine. He needs more talent. And being a college coach, you got to do more than just coach up the talent. You got to be able to recruit it too. So, yeah, I mean, I just don't know if I would use these 3 guys as like the precipice of getting ready to play college football. That's all I'll say. There's other guys that are better than them that he also got ready to play.
That's what I was getting ready to say. I mean, and we've talked about it before. You still have to credit him for Boubacar Traore coming in and being able to play in a relatively short amount of time. So you might be frustrated that they brought in RJ Oben and RJ Oben's not doing anything, but at the same time, you got Jordan Botelho who's finally stepped up. And I mean, it's like, oh, look what happens when a guy actually devotes some, it's amazing seeing photos of Jordan Botelho from a year ago, just as big and thick as he is compared to what he looked like when he was in much better shape coming into this season. It's like, oh, you actually focus and dedicate yourself, and now you're producing. But
that's what happens when you're bought in. It's amazing.
Right. But again, when he wasn't producing, Washington gets the blame for that. So I think that there's definitely give and take, and part of this, as they do continue to recruit and bring in their own guys, I'm not saying it's all going to magically solve itself, but I do think that we're going to start to see a more consistent level of play across the board than probably what we've seen in the last couple of years so far.
That's
Just based on some of the results we've seen from some of these young recruits and such. Let me see. 937 Irish, in or out? The two most difficult remaining games are the two service academies due to style of play and location of the games. Are we in or are we out on that?
Could not be more farther out on this one than any question that we've had so far. So I'm out. I don't. Yeah, their style is different. Okay, Notre Dame plays them every year. I don't think the style is. I mean, and the location means 0 to me. So no, I'm out. Very far on this one. Now, if you wanted to combine those two and say that's like one game and then put USC, okay, I'd be okay to be in on that one. Location has nothing to do with it, number one. And number two, they're both good, really good teams this year. So that's part of it, right? But I still think that Notre Dame should handle both of them. And I don't care where they're playing it. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. I think maybe they're a little bit closer, in score than they were in the past because both teams are obviously better this year. But again, it's like you hate to say, well, who have they played? But who have they played?
I mean,
like, okay, great. Army beat Temple. It's like, okay.
And yeah. Navy beat Memphis. I think that was one of their big wins because Memphis beat Florida State. But is that really an accomplishment at this point? Because they put 56 up on Memphis, but they also gave up 44. Okay, I think you got to remember that.
I mean, athletically, with what Notre Dame has on offense, it should both games should just be total mismatches on that side of the ball, if nothing else.
Could not agree more. And they'll look. Navy's going to be undefeated when they come to see Notre Dame because they're off this week, and then they've got a 500 Charlotte team the week before they see Notre Dame. They'll be undefeated going to Notre Dame or, going into the Notre Dame game where Notre Dame plays at Giant Stadium or MetLife Stadium, whatever they call it these days. And they literally play there every other year. Like that's not MetLife Stadium is not a foreign place for Notre Dame. So the location means absolutely 0 to me. And so they should roll Navy. I'm sorry. You should always roll Navy. I love Navy. I love what they stand for. I love everything about Navy, but you should roll Navy. That's the bottom line. You should roll Navy. Always. And I realize Notre Dame has lost to Navy before. I get it. But, if you're talking about location, they went to Ireland last year and won by 39.
And rolled Navy. Yes.
I mean, just no.
From bracket cover 3, in or out, Jordan Clark is the biggest positive surprise of the offseason, and RJ Oben is the most disappointing offseason transfers. You got multiple in or outs there.
Yeah, I think I'm on both of those, to be honest with you. I think Jordan Clark has absolutely been the biggest positive surprise. He's playing really, really well. And yeah, I'm not even going to bring up the stupid spitting, headbutting, whatever.
We've talked about it at least twice this week, so you don't have to.
I'm gonna chalk that up to just being dumb. And everybody makes dumb mistakes. So his play on the football field has been outstanding. It's been outstanding. So I think he has been a super positive surprise. And unfortunately, RJ Oben has not lived up to the billing.
Yeah.
I thought, he came in, supposedly was going to be the better of the two defensive end transfers in the last 2 years. And that has certainly not been the case. So I am very disappointed up to this point.
Yet Jordan Clark has been really good. And I know that there were some questions about him coming from Arizona State. And when we talked to him in the spring, we found out that he was really banged up and playing through some injuries last year. And when you look at him this year, man, it's like his anticipation and just he is always around the ball. And he was just always making plays around the ball. So I have been very pleasantly surprised by him. And Oben, I expected a lot closer to the kind of production that they got from Javonte Jean-Baptiste last year. Like when you look at the production that Oben had at Duke, Like he had produced at a higher level than JJB coming out of Duke than JJB did coming out of Ohio State. And I thought we were going to see more from Oben this year. So I'm in on both of those. Now, going back to what we were just talking about with Army, Navy, Anthony says Alabama should always roll Vandy. Yes.
They're also in the same conference. They're also both Power 4 teams. So
correct on both cases. And major difference. Why is Vandy better this year? The transfer portal. They brought in Diego. What's the guy's last name? It's escaping me right.
The quarterback.
Yeah. Silva. What's his name? You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They brought in a transfer portal quarterback who was a 3-star. I think he was even maybe a 2-star guy coming, out of high school, went to New Mexico State, and boom, he comes to Vanderbilt, gives him a chance to play in the SEC. And look at Pavia. Thank you, Tommy. Look at what he's doing right now. And they added a bunch of other transfer portal guys as well. Who does not benefit? Who benefits the least of any FBS teams in the country from the transfer portal? Army, Navy, and Air Force. You don't transfer to any of those schools. Like,
transfer out.
Right.
You don't transfer
like we
in.
talk about, this, should Alabama always roll Vanderbilt?
Yeah, they
Obviously
should.
they have for a long time. It took 40 years before Vanderbilt finally beat Alabama. But the transfer portal is proving to be the great equalizer for a lot of teams. Now, again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, you don't want to have to, like 20, 30 guys a year and that kind of thing. But, that's transfer portal is like, if it did not exist, Vandy didn't win that game last week. So
completely agree.
Big difference. So one other, with all the injuries, the following positions are currently deepest in terms of quality in the following order. Number 1, linebacker.
Good Lord.
Number 2, running back. Number 3, cornerback. Number 3,
you
quarterback.
can't include Hurd and Clark in the corners. They're not both
Hold on.
corners.
Let me get through the list here. Number 5, defensive line. Number 6, safety. Number 7, wide receiver. Number 8, tight end. Number 9, offensive line. He says riddled with injury. So do you agree with that order? Well, I mean, Hurd and Clark technically aren't corners, but obviously they stepped up and played corner when they needed them to against Louisville.
But Rod Hurd didn't play corner against Louisville. Clark played corner against Louisville. Right? Are we including him because he's a nickel?
I don't.
I mean, Hurd is a safety. Hurd's a safety. He's not a corner. He's a safety.
I mean,
Clark played corner against Louisville.
The depth at corner is still more about Leonard more than Hurd. So he included Hurd there. Depth of because again, like deepest in terms of quality, he included Hurd and Clark. I mean, those were emergency situations essentially. Like depth at corner, especially now with no Jaden Mickey
depth at corner
on the team, is still a concern.
Depth at corner is terrible. That has to go down. That has to be much more down. Look, cornerback is one injury away from having like a potential walk-on in the depth chart. Like corner has to go. Corner's way more down the list. So I'll disagree with corner at number 3. I would say, look, quarterback is 4 or 5 deep for a one position, right? A one player position. I would move quarterback up. I would move corner back down. I'd move wide receiver up because I think that they're still pretty deep, right? And you can make your arguments for why they haven't been as successful or whatever, but a lot of that also has to do with the quarterback and the offensive line, but they're still deep. There's still plenty of talent at wide receiver, so I would move wide receiver up. Other than that, I guess it's fine. So I guess I'm out. I'm out as far as the way this list is set up because I would move 3 or 4 different positions around.
Yeah, it's very detailed. Like,
there's a lot going on here, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, offensive line, like currently deepest. Yeah, like if you're going currently, because remember, like the offensive line, their depth has been tested. Safety's not particularly deep. Like wide receiver is actually very deep. They just haven't produced very much. So I would put receiver. You've got to put receiver higher on the list. Quarterback, I would definitely put up on the list. Running back, I would actually probably put at the top of the list. So yeah, I think that, and I'm just going to be out on your order. I think we could nitpick on where we were,
right?
Where we would put all of them, but I've got to be out on that order. So, okay. So Anthony loves Navy. I seriously hope that the analysis before the Navy game does not become lazy and simply dismiss Navy as triple option team. But that's what they are. They're an option team.
Right.
Like,
they do it out of shotgun now sometimes, but they're still a primarily option team. So, Anthony, look, we're going to give Navy all of their roses when it's time to talk about that game. They're going to be undefeated going into the Notre Dame game, and they're going to have a loss coming out of it. Okay? Like, that's just what's going to happen. You can have all the respect you want for Navy, and that's fine.
I'm not saying, they won't score, all these different things. And Notre Dame plays them every year. And the fact that this is going to be Al Golden's third time coaching against Navy, like every year that becomes more an advantage for a defensive coordinator like Al Golden when he's already shown what he can do. And like you can talk about, the rushing yards that the Navy quarterback has and all these different things, but he's not out there making plays independent of himself. Everything is about the read. It's like the first read that he makes. Is he going to give it to the fullback or not? Is he going to keep it himself? Is he going to pitch? Is he going to roll? Is he going to pitch? All these different things. And from a defensive standpoint, it is still assignment football. It's, do you carry out the assignment? That's ultimately what it comes down to. I don't know what else to tell you, Anthony. They're option teams. And if you're going to tell me that Notre Dame shouldn't be able to beat an option team every year, I will disagree with you. Like, because of the athletes that Notre Dame has, Notre Dame should be able to beat an option team every single year. That doesn't mean that the option team can't make things uncomfortable for you at times. Like the most important part, singular most important thing that happens against an option team, and I'm not saying that there aren't other important things as well, it's first down. Like, can you win first down and make it second down and 8 as opposed to second down and even 5? Because if it's second down and 5, the odds favor the triple option team greatly, because then all they need to do is get 2.5 yards on the next 2 plays to get the next first down.
100%. It's literally.
Can you keep them behind the chains?
Correct.
After first down. Yep. That's what you have to do. Can you win first down? That's the building block right there for the defense.
Don't disagree with that in any way. And listen, here, Notre Dame, Navy, last 3 years, right? With Al Golden at the helm of the defense. Okay. Notre Dame has won those games, grand total of 111-41 points wise. 111-41. 2 out of those 3 games, Navy hasn't even scored in double digits. Okay. 2 years ago, it was 35-32, so it was a close game. 3 years ago, it was 42-3. Last year was 34-6. So, look, Notre Dame should win. And somebody in the chat already said if Notre Dame happens to lose that game, it's more about what Notre Dame didn't do as opposed to what Navy did do. Right. And I could not agree more to that. Right. I'm not saying that Notre Dame can't lose. I said they shouldn't lose. They shouldn't lose. They should not lose to Navy. They have lost to Navy, but they've also played like crap when they've lost to Navy.
Correct.
It's not about what Navy does. It's about what Notre Dame does or doesn't do. And that's a hill I will die on always. I will always look. Notre Dame didn't lose to Northern Illinois because Northern Illinois is a great team. Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois because they played like garbage. That's why Notre Dame lost. But they did lose. If they lose to Army or Navy, it's going to be the same exact.
And Northern Illinois has lost twice since then. Should Notre Dame always beat a MAC team? Yes.
Yes, they should.
Because before week 2, they had always beaten MAC teams. They had never lost to a MAC team before this year. Came close, but they didn't. Look, Navy is coming up in 2 weeks. I'll tell you, I think it was Joe who said, haven't heard of a single coach alive who likes to play an option team. I mean, again, they make things the reason why most of the time is because it's a one-off.
Correct.
Like you see that offense once a year and you want to move on. That's why I was saying last year that I would favor just opening up every season against Navy because you get extra time during the off season to prepare for Navy. You go into week 1, you play them, and then you never have to play that offense again, unless now you've got another service academy at it. It'll, option tenants and all that stuff. They have different wrinkles, Army and Navy. They're not exactly the same, but they're both based on the option. But what I was going to say is someone who played against the wing T option offense every year in high school was one Jesse Stiers. And I think he averaged like 20 tackles a game in those games because he was plugged those gaps, baby. That's what it was. So everybody loves the whiteboard. And obviously everyone wants to talk about Navy, even though we got Stanford coming up this week and Georgia Tech coming up next week. But Jesse will drag that whiteboard in here and he will give you his keys to facing the option in 2 weeks. So until then, let's just put all the Army and Navy stuff on the back burner. And I'll ask you this, Vince. Are you ready for rapid fire?
Oh, I can't even tell you how ready I am for rapid fire, so we don't have to keep talking about Navy.
I agree.
Getting frustrated here.
I know. So a lot of different players, I won't say a lot, but at least a few different players came up, during that Marcus Freeman noon Zoom call today. Here's Marcus Freeman talking about right tackle Amil Wagner.
Amil's done a great job. He's, in his first year starting, he's played well. Him, like every other coach and player, has to continue to improve. But I'm really proud of the way he's performed as our right tackle. He works consistently. He's a great team player, as you mentioned earlier. And he's continuing to improve. And so grateful that we have him on his team and grateful he's our right tackle.
So, Vince, fill in the blank. Amil Wagner is blank.
Great for this team. I'll steal his own words. But no, look, I think Amil Wagner's been the bright spot on the offensive line thus far. He has not been injured, which is fantastic. And, he has been the pleasant surprise. I think he was the quote unquote weak link going into the season, and he's been the most consistent offensive lineman for them. And so I don't know. I don't even want to think about where this offensive line would be without Amil Wagner right now.
I'm going to go with the most underrated player on the team because we don't talk about Amil Wagner. And you know why we don't talk about Amil Wagner? It's not because of Fight Club. It's because you don't talk about offensive linemen who are doing their job. And Amil Wagner just goes out there week in and week out for a first-time starter, and all he does is do his job. And more times than not, he is doing it right. Like it's all the other guys that we're talking about for the most part. And that's why I think Amil Wagner is the most underrated player on the Notre Dame football team this year because he has very quietly just gone out and done a really good, really consistent job at right tackle through the first 5 games of the season. So underrated is how I would call Amil Wagner.
I dig it.
Right. Fill in the blank. Marcus Freeman and Riley Leonard were on Notre Dame's in-house Wake Up the Echoes podcast with Tony Simeone this week. They talked about getting together every Sunday to meet for up to an hour, mostly just to connect. And that is blank.
Adorable. It's adorable that they like to hang out with each other and connect. That's fantastic.
Is that your answer?
That's my answer. It's adorable.
I think it's in Marcus Freeman, when I listened to it, he kind of touched on it. And I agree. Like when you think about the head coach and the quarterback, especially at a place like Notre Dame, like these are the two.
Yeah.
They go hand in hand.
100%.
Like they can identify with each other, I think, more than anyone. And I think that when you've got a head coach that comes from a defensive background, a self-proclaimed, not a quarterback guru, I guess he did the same thing with Sam Hartman. And I think it's important, for like the head coach and the quarterback, more than any two positions, need to have some kind of relationship. Like it can't just be, like, well, I'm a defensive guy, so why should I worry about the quarterback? So I think it's really, really important that they have some kind of relationship, some kind of bond, and they keep some kind of open lines of communication. Like Riley was saying that, sometimes it's like we're just buddies in there, whatever. It's like sometimes Freeman he said, he would like jot down some things like I need to bring this up, like business type stuff or, whatever it needs to be. But I think, again, like when you look at the two guys who get the most credit and the most blame, head coach and the quarterback, I think it's important that they have this kind of stuff.
Oh, 100%. I obviously I was joking around when I said adorable, but look, you
said it was your answer.
It is my answer. I'm sticking with that answer. First,
okay.
I'm going to be very clear about that. But no, I think you make a really, really good point, and it's something that a lot of people don't understand, is that the only two people on the planet that can understand what it's like to be the head coach or the quarterback at Notre Dame are the head coach and the quarterback at Notre Dame. And they get all the blame, they get all the love, and that's a lot to handle, especially for a guy like Riley Leonard, who was at Duke last year. I mean, he didn't get this kind of scrutiny when he was at Duke.
Yeah.
He was able to fly under the radar, man. Like, so I have no problem with the two of them getting together. And if you want to be a top level program, you've got to be on the same page as your quarterback, and your quarterback needs to be on the same page as your head coach. I mean, that just is what it is. That's how it works. You know what I mean? And so I think it's
I think it's important that it's also more than just the film room.
100%.
Like they have an actual connection and can talk with each other.
Right. I think it's fantastic. I think it's great.
Any issue with the head coach just meeting with the starting quarterback and like none of the other quarterbacks, none of the other players in this fashion?
No, I have no issue with that whatsoever, because nobody else gets the scrutiny that Riley Leonard gets. You know what I mean? Like, he's the quarterback at Notre Dame. Your team's only going to go as far as your quarterback is going to take you. I have no problem with it whatsoever, and I certainly wouldn't waste my time with the backup quarterbacks. Like, you could make an argument for maybe some other positions. You know what I mean? Like a captain of the defense,
a captain's meeting or something like that.
And he does have captain's meetings, by the way. Like, that is a thing, and they have them weekly, and they talk, and they do all of those things. But I would not have private meetings with backup quarterbacks or anything like that. Like, this is a Riley Leonard only thing, and I'm fine with it.
Right. Once you ascend to the top of the rung, then you get to have that meeting
right
as well.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
That's essentially what it comes down to. This is not everyone gets a ribbon. And like you said, because of Freeman has, for the most part, some background with most of these guys, because he is so proactive in recruiting. He's developed, he's already got a relationship with CJ Carr because he was out there talking with CJ Carr when they were recruiting CJ Carr. Excuse me. And most of the other players as well. But because Leonard is a transfer, came from another program, he's only going to be here for a short amount of time. So I think it's important that they continue to kind of forge that. Now, Josh does not like the podcast. Josh does not like anything external. He would prefer it if Marcus Freeman and Riley Leonard never eat, never go to class, and do nothing but barricade themselves behind the walls of the Goog and crunch film. Stop doing the podcasts, Josh says.
Really?
Vince D'Addario's answer is what?
Vince D'Addario's answer is these guys are human. They're not going to be working on football 24 hours a day. That's my answer. Like, guess what? I'm still a great dad because I do a podcast for 90 minutes a day. Like, you don't have to focus on, I'm also a great dean. I'm all of these different hats that you can wear. Like, that's allowed. And he's allowed to go on a podcast for an hour out of his day.
It wasn't even that. Like, they might have been on that particular podcast for 20 minutes,
Come on.
So
give me a break. And they didn't podcast about the meeting. Somebody asked the question. They answered it. Like, that wasn't the basis of the podcast. They went on the podcast.
Yeah. Again, Josh is saying if they can meet, you don't need to podcast about it. This was the host of the podcast, Simeone, asking Freeman and Leonard about it. It wasn't like, Marcus Freeman and Riley Leonard went in and, with, hey, we meet every Sunday. We're
let's have a podcast about it.
Let's podcast about it. No. They were asked about it. They answered the question.
Right.
That's what it comes down to. Yeah. Come on, everybody.
And by the way,
calm down.
By the way, Josh, when you're getting paid like Marcus Freeman and Riley Leonard are, that's part of the deal. You got to do podcasts and you got to do media things.
I mean, it's part of
it.
It's part of the deal. Like,
you're getting paid.
Like, obviously we're not paying attention to what other coaches are doing. I have no idea if like Ryan Day is doing that. But I don't think they really do the coaches show anymore, do they? Do they still do?
I don't think so.
Like a coaches radio? I don't think they do that. So. And so this kind of takes the place of what used to be a weekly coaches show. Because I know like Nick Saban was out there, like sitting in whatever bar they sat in down there in Tuscaloosa once a week doing the traditional coaches call-in show and stuff like that. And most coaches are out there doing it, and they're getting, they get a paycheck for doing that as well.
It's an extra. It's extra income.
Yeah.
I guarantee you Riley Leonard and Marcus Freeman got paid in some form or fashion to be on this podcast. I'm just saying. So, and the extra 30 minutes or even an hour that they spent on the podcast, traveling to the podcast, whatever the case may be, I'm sorry, that's not going to make a difference in the game on Saturday. One more hour of film, one more hour. No, it's not going to make a difference. You can say whatever you want. That is not going to make a difference. There is a
right. So like Marcus Freeman needs to shave like 2 more hours. Like he needs 2 less hours of home time with his family so that he can be crunching more film. Like, are we gonna go that far? Like Riley Leonard needs to be making sure that he's not devoting as much time to whatever, grad program that he's in so he can be crunching film and meeting more with Mike Denbrock. Like they all have different priorities that they have to attend to other than football throughout the week.
Exactly.
So Vince, there is a new Super League proposal being formulated for college football called Project Rudy. Its name derives in part from the fact that former Notre Dame athletic director Jack Swarbrick is one of the planners of this project. So here's the gist of what they want to do. They would include 70 football programs from the Power 4 conferences. The model would preserve the 4 power conferences, expand the postseason, overhaul scheduling. There would be tiers of revenue distribution, and it also infuses as much as $9 billion of private capital cash into the system. They would eliminate games against Group of 5 and FCS teams, giving them more marquee matchups on the schedule. And they would also consolidate the TV contracts in a similar fashion to the NFL's TV contract. So there is more overall, even revenue distribution compared to what the conferences currently have. So that's kind of the thumbnail of it. There's obviously a whole lot more to it as well. So what do you think about this Project Rudy thing, Vince?
Well, first of all, anybody that wants to make the argument that Notre Dame isn't relevant, Project Rudy. Just want to throw that out there. They're literally naming the thing after Notre Dame. Okay?
Right.
So that argument is over. Okay? That argument is absolutely 100% over. Look, I don't necessarily have a huge issue with the idea of it and kind of streamlining things and kind of putting everybody on kind of an equal playing field and streamlining the TV deals. And I like the idea of more marquee games and all of that. I think all of that is actually really good. It's a really good idea. I do. Here's my biggest problem with the whole thing. And you may or may not agree with me on it. And that's obviously.
No, I want to hear. I
we
want to hear what you think.
This, if they do this, this will strike the death knell for all the other non-70 teams, especially the ones in the group of 5. It'd be over. They're done because their programs are sustained by those paycheck games. Okay, so the MAC, the American, all of these conferences who play football, they play these big teams and expect to take a loss. Now, sometimes Northern Illinois beats Notre Dame, right? Or whatever, right? But they play those games to get a big check so that they can sustain not only their program, but also other programs on campus. And so you're going to see sports folding across the country that aren't part of that top 70. And I have a problem with that.
But the top 70 obviously don't care.
Oh, I get it. No, I totally understand that. And if I was one of those top 70 programs, I probably wouldn't care either. You know what I mean? But I'm just thinking about, I guess, the little guy or whatever. All those programs are going to fold. There's no way the Eastern Michigans and the Ball States are, because those are localish teams, right? Yeah. There's no way they'll be sustained.
I'm going to give you my honest answer to that, Vince.
I don't care. I know you don't care. I get it.
I mean, they can roll down to FCS if that's what they need to do. I think that they'll exist to some extent. I get what you're saying. They all, depend on paycheck games and all that different kind of stuff. I think that compared to what we have now, this is more desirable to me, which is probably why Jack Swarbrick is, involved in this. And, like Andrew was saying, why would schools like Texas, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, and Michigan agree to this? Equal shares. They drive all the eyes to TV. They should get more money. You're exactly right. And that's why, again, in there, and I think Father David followed it up, there are revenue tiers. So there would be more equal, compared to now where an SEC or a Big Ten school is getting around $100 million per year in their TV revenue, whereas an ACC school is getting, a little north of, what is it, like 30, 35 million or whatever it is. It would, equalize things more among these 70 schools, but the schools like Alabama, Notre Dame, that you mentioned, Texas, Ohio State, the schools that do draw more eyes to the TV, they would be getting a greater share of the revenue. Again, like there's a ton to this, and, just Google Project Rudy. And, like if you want to, read through it, there's a lot to read through in terms of, what they actually want to do. So there would still be there. And that's, I think, part of why some of the, the big players in all this are driving for this, because they would get, a greater chunk of the revenue. But like you would also have to wait. I think it's probably like 8 to 10 years for the current TV contract to expire and all that, because you've got all these, different staggered TV contracts and all that kind of stuff. I think it's intriguing. Do I think it's actually going to happen? I would have a tough time thinking that it's actually going to. But, like if you looked at Notre Dame's schedule this year, like everyone's complaining about Notre Dame's schedule this year. You'd have a much more attractive schedule if all you were playing is other teams from the Power Four.
Look, I will play devil's advocate to my own argument. I hate it. I hate those games that Notre Dame, Alabama. I hate FCS games. I hate those lower level games. I don't like them. I would much rather have Notre Dame playing Power 4 teams at all times. I really would. It makes for more exciting shows to do. It makes for more exciting games to watch and analyze and all of those things. So, like, as a fan, I totally understand it. I think my original argument, part of that is probably from, as a dad talking about a kid who is going to be playing at one of those levels. You know what I mean? And that potentially going away or looking a lot different, that kind of a thing. But trying to put myself in all the different shoes, right? You know, as a high Power 5 or Power 4, I kind of like it, right? I just don't like it as the other guys who count on those big checks.
Yeah, Father David says, why involve private equity? Why can't the conferences do this themselves? I mean, the why involve private equity, I agree with that, because I think, as someone said, Andrew said, they can be pretty shady. I mean, there's an infusion of money coming with that. But, why can't the conferences do that themselves? I mean, the answer to that is all the conferences are looking out for themselves. And that's why you've got the system
100%
that you've got right now. And I said this yesterday, even if you did this, like, you still have to have someone at the top. There's got to be some kind of commissioner and, someone establishing rules to kind of keep this in place. So you do have to have some kind of governing body running this whole thing.
Yes.
And that's why, like, the conferences themselves will never get it figured out, because all they want to do is take care of themselves and just make sure that they're getting a bigger cut of the pie than anybody else. And to make something like this happen, I think you've got to have that infusion of the outside money, as well as someone to bring all these people together, to make this happen.
The reality is, this is the first step to them breaking away from the NCAA, right? I mean, that's what we've kind of been talking about for 5 years plus now or more. Like, this is the step. This is what would make that happen. They would have a commissioner, basically, of the 70, and they would break away. And the new Division I, to somebody's point in the chat, the new Division I would now be the group of 5. Like, that's the new Division I. So they have a chance to win a national championship, I guess. And that would open up, those possibilities and all of those things. So, they would break away. It would be over for the NCAA. I'm sure they don't like this idea.
No, I'm sure they don't. I'm sure that, again, I think that there are some intriguing aspects to it. There have been some other ideas like this before. They haven't worked. I do find it interesting that Jack Swarbrick is involved with this, especially after retiring just a few months ago, that he's already involved
I know, right?
in something like this.
Keep your eyes, be ready for this. He has a chance of being that very first commissioner. I could see that happening.
I could see it as well.
That's a hell of a retirement gig.
Yep. Okay, so Notre Dame walk-on and former Mishawaka quarterback Justin Fischer was Notre Dame's Scout Team Player of the Week for the Louisville game a couple of weeks ago. It's the second time he got the honor this season. Here's Marcus Freeman talking a little bit about Justin Fischer.
Yeah, he's playing some special teams for us. He's been down on a couple kickoffs, done some KOR, and, he's a valuable member of our program to having success. And I often want everybody in our program to understand that although your roles might be different, the value of you executing your role is so crucial for us to reaching our full potential. And Justin Fischer is a great example. What he provides for the defense in terms of his effort, in terms of his execution as a scout team running back, but then what he does on game day, being a special teams member, it's crucial that he gets his job done in practice and in the game for us to have success. And so he's a great example of your role doesn't define your value, and his value is tremendous for us to have success.
So what do you think, Vince? Old Jay Fish, our old buddy, we used to do the Mishawaka games, talking about that wing tee and the option offense and all that different kind of stuff. What do you think of what Marcus Freeman said there?
I think he did exactly what he always does. He initially talks about the person that you asked about, then he goes big picture and he talks about that, and then he brings it back to the one that you actually asked about.
That's right.
That was classic. I mean, it's a classic Marcus Freeman answer. I'm starting to see this every time I hear him talk when a question's asked, which is hilarious. But I mean, he's absolutely right. Look, Justin Fischer has a role on the team and he does it to perfection. I mean, that's what he does. He's the scout team running back. He is thick, man. He has put on the armor. I say in quotes, like he's a big, thick kid who can take a pounding. And I didn't realize, I saw, because one of the local news stations did kind of a similar story, and I happened to see it on X earlier. I didn't realize he's number 46 that runs down on the kickoff team. And obviously It's because he wears number 23, and the Urlacher kid is also 23. And so I think they're both on the kickoff team. And so one of them has to change their number. But he's wearing 46 when he runs down on the kickoff team. I didn't realize that was Jay Fish.
Why don't they just make him 46 full time? I didn't realize that was him either.
Yeah.
Like you said, that one of the TV stations, that's who actually asked the question about him. I think they were working on that feature, but he has played in all 5 games.
Good
on
for
special
him, man.
teams.
It couldn't happen to a better kid. Like, the kid works his butt off. He's a great kid. He's a great kid off the field too. Had many interactions with him off the field. I mean, he was volunteering to keep the score for like a middle school basketball game when he was in high school. Like, he's just a great kid. And so it couldn't happen to a better kid, a better family. Big fan of the Fishers. So
that's what I was going to say. Great family is, dad, and I think, is his mom a teacher as well?
That I'm not sure. I know dad's a principal.
Yeah, but I was going to say, like, in education and everything, and like his older brother CJ. Remember, he, like, when we first started doing the games, he was playing baseball and basketball, and he actually tried to walk on at Mississippi State.
Yeah,
I don't think he made it because he's not quite as big as Justin,
and he was a defensive player.
Good, really good defense. Yeah, he actually, like, you're wearing that Penn shirt right now. I guess this was before you started doing the games with me, but Fischer and Derek Dawson were part of the final play against Penn. Mishawaka beat Penn a few years back for the first time in a long time.
Both of his brothers go to Mississippi State. So,
I think CJ is done now, but the younger one, Brady, I think, is down there right now.
Yeah, there's some scholarship, and I don't know what it is, but they both, I believe, got it, and they have a chance to go to Mississippi State for minimal, if anything, tuition wise, and they've taken advantage of it. Whatever. Dad explained it to me one time. I don't remember exactly what it is, but they found this scholarship, and all of a sudden the Fishers are Mississippi State Bulldogs. So it's like, all right, cool. So they don't think of people around here going to Mississippi State, but hey, 2 Fishers did.
Yeah, it's like, I think because they had like certain GPA, and so like it's one of those, like, they found out somehow that Mississippi State would give you some really good academic money to go down there, and so they had the grades, and so Mississippi State Bulldogs all the way for them. And in the meantime, Justin's up here bulking it up, and I think what's his weight up to? It's like he's over 230 pounds now. I know he wasn't 230 when he was playing quarterback in that option offense for Mishawaka.
And somehow he's been able to maintain, his speed too, which is really impressive. 230, 6'2", 231.
Yep. Fill in the blank. The best postseason in sports is blank.
This is hard for me. My initial gut reaction was to say baseball, but I tune out of baseball if my team's not in. So I'm going to go with the NFL. Which is
disappointing for like a guy who considers himself such a baseball guy. You're tuning out.
I'm going NFL. I really enjoy the postseason for the NFL, and I know that's not going to be a popular answer for some people because, look, the postseason right now for college football stinks. I'm not a big fan of it. I don't know what the 12-team playoff is going to really be like because we've never experienced it. So if you ask me this question 6 months from now, I may have a different answer. But right now, it's the NFL playoffs.
To me, it's baseball, man. Like, it's so, the baseball playoffs are so different from the regular season, but just like with the, the crowd engagement and the passion, the emotion, and like every pitch means something, it's been, you have to have the right announcer. We were all bagging on Bob Costas the other day, and man, it is still, I'm trying to be patient watching that series, man. But and even like the TV as well, like watching the games on the TV, like you can get upset about some of the in-game interviews and stuff like that. But guess what they don't have during the baseball playoffs on TV that all these other sports have? The stupid rules analyst who's going to come on and like over-explain every single little play. They've always got to bring the rules analyst in. You don't see the rules analyst in baseball.
That's clutch. The rules analyst is annoying.
Very annoying.
It's just annoying. I don't know how else to describe it. The rules analyst is annoying.
Yeah. Phil, and baseball is also like it's night to night, like there's nothing like a series going on and all that stuff. And I'm disappointed, Vince.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And it's been a while. It's been a while since the Cubs have been there too. So
I don't have the attention span to watch teams for a series that I don't care about.
All you had to do is say, I don't have the attention span. Like you could have stopped right there.
I don't have it. There's too much going on in my world. I don't have the attention span to sit down and watch games.
Vince is tuning out. Fill in the blank. It's blank that, speaking of postseason, it's blank that the WNBA went up against NFL games on Sunday with their playoffs, and game 1 of the WNBA finals is also up against the NFL tonight.
That's poor planning. I mean, look, I wouldn't put any sport, male or female, up against the NFL because you're going to lose every single time. So that's poor planning. You gotta plan around the NFL. I'm sorry. I know that maybe people don't want to hear that, but if you want people to watch, then you that's dumb. That's just not, you have the ability to adjust your schedule.
And apparently this is an ESPN thing as well. Like, because like ESPN wants the programming, because obviously like with the NFL, the only game on ESPN is Monday Night Football. But like, why would you want to just ensure that no one is going to watch? Don't you want the ratings if you're ESPN in the WNBA? Like, going up against the NFL is just suicide is what it is. And it's like, they've got to get this figured out, because like the whole Caitlin, like they had a chance, even though Caitlin Clark and the Fever were out in the first round of the playoffs. So like they don't factor into this right now. Like, I don't think it's going to be too long before Caitlin Clark has the Fever going deeper into the playoffs, and you want as many eyeballs on that as possible. And it's like as simple as, instead of playing on Thursday night, how about you play on Friday night instead when you don't have the NFL? Or, like, don't play on Sunday, play that game on Monday, but maybe instead of going up against Monday Night Football, start it at 6:30 or 7 o'clock so that you're more of a lead-in to football. It seems like there's some easy solutions. And again, like they've got to get this figured out pretty soon, because they've got to be able to start capitalizing on Caitlin Clark playoff pushes, basically, because that's what drove the viewership in her rookie year this year. So
good call.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for tonight, Vince. Like, for anyone who says we don't go long enough, I think we answered them tonight.
Oh, my wife's not happy.
Uh-oh. Did I get you in trouble?
They're at the restaurant waiting for me.
All right. Well, I didn't realize that.
It's all good. Hey, I didn't bring it up because it is what it is.
Yep.
We have things to discuss. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and Andrew says they obviously don't care about trying to carve out a real audience. And I'll tell you what, again, like as someone, who's obviously been involved with women's basketball,
right,
in different forms for a long time, I've always felt like you're either a women's basketball fan or you're not. There's not many, you don't tend to pull in casual fans,
That's
like
fair.
the Super Bowl or the, like
That's
the NFL
fair.
playoffs and those kind of things. But I really do feel like that has started to shift in the last few years. And obviously this Caitlin Clark phenomenon has completely, like I've got a buddy who I've known for a long time, and we talked, like over the summer, and he has never had, like, he actually watches, I would say NFL, Major League Baseball, and some NBA, but he has never been into women's basketball at all. But like, he was watching Caitlin Clark games, and there are a lot of people who are like that, because she is so different than everybody else, and they've got to get it figured out. Like she brings, that's exactly right. That's exactly right, Josh. She pulls in the casuals 4 times. Yeah. Like she is the one that has swung a lot of this, and they've got to get that figured out going forward if they want to continue to get eyeballs on that product.
Listen, for the record, I love going to Notre Dame women's games. I love it. And I'm honestly, last 5 years or so, they've been the better Notre Dame product in the Joyce Center. And so I've enjoyed going to women's games more than going to the men's games. Now, hopefully that pendulum swings a little bit here moving forward, But I love going to the women's games, and one of the reasons is my daughters love going, and I love hanging out with them. But it's good basketball. It's great basketball to watch. I really enjoy. I can't wait for the season. I'm so excited for the women's season this year. I think it's going to be special.
Yeah. Giggity says, how long will that last? As long as Caitlin Clark is playing. I mean,
and it's up to the WNBA too.
Yeah. And I mean, you've got some other great, like you mentioned Notre Dame. And I mean, I think we all know it. Like when you've heard the stuff that Niele Ivey has been saying about this team and like just going to practice and the awe that she watches with Hannah Hidalgo and Olivia Miles together and everything, they're like, you're going to see some showtime this season.
Yes.
I will tell you that when it comes to Notre Dame women's basketball. And there are other great young players like Juju Watkins out there at USC and, just a lot of other great ones. I'm not going to give credit to UConn players, because let's just be honest. If it's not UConn, they're not going to compliment them, obviously. Right. Like I saw Sue Bird is still throwing, like daggers at Caitlin Clark right now. It's like, come on, man. Like there are other teams, there are other players who come from other programs other than UConn. Can you just give other great players some credit? Like,
no,
get off it.
It's all UConn.
Yeah. All right, we're going to wrap it up with that. I'm going to let Vince go eat with his family. So enjoy the rest of the night. IB Countdown to Kickoff will come your way. We'll have it probably posted somewhere 6:30-ish, hopefully, tomorrow night. And then, of course, got the mailbag show that Brian and Trevor will have before that as well, and the post-game show after Notre Dame Stanford as well. So have a great weekend. Enjoy the game. We will talk to you Monday. IB Nation Sports Talk.